How do you craft irresistible subject lines for cold emails? That is exactly what I'm going to cover. And I'm going to talk about some of the things you need to take into account when you create subject lines. I want to talk about how to think about subject lines in markets that generally have lower sophistication, meaning that they're not getting as many cold emails as other markets are getting. And then also sending emails with specific subject lines for high sophistication markets where they're receiving a lot of cold emails and you kind of need to stand out. So I'm going to cover that and then also give you some evergreen subject lines that just kind of always work no matter what. And also a prompt for generating subject lines. So that's what I'm going to cover in this video. Before I dive into it, why should you listen to me about subject lines? So at ScaleSprint, we've sent millions and millions of emails, created hundreds of campaigns, and even like hundreds of thousands of data points in the past few months. So we have a lot of data on this. So this is kind of a data-backed video based on what we've seen work across all these emails we've sent. And so the first thing I want to cover is the considerations, right? So the first thing is the audience itself. Like, who are you actually reaching out to? How many emails are they getting? And how sophisticated are they? So that is the things you have to take into account because people, react to subject lines in different ways. And the reason for that is, once your brain kind of picks up on a pattern where it's like, these particular types of subject lines are always gonna just be sales emails that waste my time, people stop opening them. On the other hand, if you have a audience that is just not receiving a lot of emails, right, they might not, be opposed to opening emails despite them being kind of, using generic subject lines that do seem a bit salesy. So for low sophistication levels, you can go a bit more salesy, right? You can allow yourself to kind of put your offer in the subject line if it's a very appealing offer. Now, of course, if it's a very kind of salesy offer, then maybe just tone it down a bit. But you can put your offer in the subject line, especially if it's like a kind of niche pain point that other people might not be writing to them about. You can definitely do that. I have a few examples here of what I mean. Now, for these particular industries, I don't actually think I would do that, but I just want to kind of show what it looks like to put your offer in the subject line. And I would also say for the low sophistication levels, you can also do the generic ones like quick question, thoughts, first name. These are the ones that are, they're overused for sure, but it's because they do work to a certain extent, right? Like they're kind of like the bedrock of subject lines, and they'll always work to some extent. But you can go down from there, and you can also improve from there, right? So, but they'll generally work for these audiences. The next type of audience is the high sophistication levels. So you don't want to do salesy lines here. You don't want to put your offer in the subject line, especially if it's a saturated one. So for myself, if I put cold email in a subject line, I'm gone. If I put outbound in the subject line, I'm gone. So I need to avoid doing that. And the way you do that, the way you manage to get your email opened is by making a subject line that looks like it could come from a coworker or a customer. And you want to do that without directly lying. Like you obviously don't want to lie in the subject line because the moment you try to deceive a prospect, you lost the sale. So you shouldn't do that. And I have a prompt here that you can use for actually creating these types of subject lines. So you can see this here. You can put this into ChatGPT with your copies as well, and it can come up with specific offers. So yeah, there's a lot of different examples of what you can do here. So you just have to be creative. You can use the prompt as well and keep it under 3 words so it's super easy to read and it's kind of vague. You want to keep it vague, but also not like, extremely vague. You probably don't want to call it like email. Just don't keep it too vague, but still like keep it vague. So that's what I'd say about this level of sophistication. And for the last slide here, a few evergreen subject lines you can always use. One of them being introduction and then company name and your company. This gives me a consistently high reply rate. Then company x your company, again, also good one. Quick question, thoughts, first name. Also another one is, can I know more about this first name? You probably want to use this one if you have like a question about how they're doing things now, and you can put that there, and it kind of sounds like a customer that's writing to them. So these are all like pretty decent ones you can use, and you can experiment, using these in conjunction with some of the other ones, some of the other frameworks I've shown you, and then you can see what performs the best and go from there. So I hope this was helpful. And if you are looking to work with a company like ScaleSprint, where we set up outbound systems and take care of all this stuff, of course, campaign setup, data scraping, split testing, subject lines, the whole thing, you can book a meeting with me below and we can have a chat. So thanks for watching and have a good day.